Hello everyone, myself Dr. Radhika Mehta, Associate Professor from Jagannath University, Jaipur. Let's start a new topic, reporting for newspapers, news agencies and magazines. So today we'll be talking about how the reporting of a newspaper, agencies and magazines differ from each other. In fact, when we talk about these three terms, these three are very different from each other. Though all three somewhere support each other and somewhere comes under the tree of publication. So, when we talk about the term newspaper, as we all know, newspaper is a daily periodical which is published and circulated on the daily basis. On the other hand, if we talk about magazines, so magazines are can be minimum weekly, fortnight, and then it start with monthly, bi-monthly, or it can be a yearly periodicals. And if we talk about the lastly about news agencies, so news agencies are a more kind of source for newspapers and magazines, in fact, other news portals too, and they help them to get a better information. It is news agencies are basically the pool of information which is further circulated in multiple media houses. So, looking at the nature of these three mediums, in fact, their reporting differs as well. So, first of all, let's understand the newspapers. A newspaper is a publication that is issued daily or weekly and includes local and international news stories, advertisements, announcements, opinions, cartoons, sports news, and television listing. It is important methods of letting the public know everything that is happening in the local area and around the world. Even with the advancements in computer technology, newspapers continue to be an important aspect of everyday life. Newspapers are written in columns. They are more formal, more political, and general on things that have happened. Now, what is magazine journalism? Magazine journalism uses the traditional journalism tools of interviews, background research, and writing to produce articles for magazines. Magazine is a publication issued at regular intervals. It can be usually weekly or monthly, containing article stories, photographs, advertisements, and other features, with a page size that is usually smaller than that of a newspaper, but larger than that of a book. Magazine journalism differs from newspaper journalism as newspapers have a very broad audience with widely varying ages and interests confined to one metropolitan area, whereas magazines have a national audience who has a very specialized interest in one particular topic. Now, when we take a look on the approach, it plays a major role between these two as newspaper focuses more of what is needed, fixed and straight to the point, whereas magazine tend to be more freestyle. Here, the information throws up into various dimensions. They are more relaxed and practices well on the freedom that they are given in straight manner. Content wise, the newspapers are way too serious than of a magazine. So when we talk about the approach of a newspaper or a magazine, so magazines are more in a free side. They can add opinion, they can talk about a topic which maybe everyone doesn't want to even talk about. They don't go according to what's happening around, but they talk, they generate interest into a new topic. They try to convince people and bring out everyone towards a particular topic, whereas a newspaper has certain limitations. They report what is required. They cannot avoid any important information or instance what is happening around the globe, society, or a nation. They are more into five W's and one H. They are more towards objective reporting. Whereas if we talk about the approach of a magazine, they are free, they talk something in detail and in which they give their own opinions as well. Now let's take a look on the divisions. A large difference can be easily seen in this factor as the newspaper presents immediately in its front page the facts and information for its readers, while the magazine's cover page focuses on the various must read pieces of information and appeals to the readers to turn that page and look for a specific story. Divisions inside the newspaper are more specific and tend to vary from one subject matter to another, whereas magazine's main target otherwise is on a single or maybe two subject matters alone. In newspaper, there is business, sports, local and foreign news. Whereas magazines does not have and rarely do have them. The newspapers are more versatile in its division than magazines. So, when we talk about the term magazine, they pick a particular genre, they pick a particular theme or a topic, and then the story or the entire magazines revolves around that. For example, a magazine can be only about health issues. So the magazine is only about health, consisting of good 40 to 50 pages, or it can even exceed 200 to 200 page of magazine. So, and which talking about the topic, it will only be health and the stories will only be about health. Whereas when we talk about a newspaper, as it's a daily periodical, so they cannot limit to a particular topic, and it will be somewhere of 35 or maximum 40 pages, including even the uh, supplements which is along with the main newspaper, and consisting of multiple information, multiple news stories, like they have to cover sports, political, foreign, then entertainment, business, then even the local city stories, education. So they have to cover every single information which is happening around, no matter they are from which particular side. That means it can be about any topic, but if that information has any of the news value, like it has proximity, it has timeliness, it has prominence, or even if it has a kind of different novelty into it, or there can be a possibility that it has impact on it. So of course a newspaper cannot skip or avoid such kind of information. Now the next is readability. Newspapers reader is mostly exposed on facts and figures that are delivered or written in a straight manner. A magazine reader is treated to it more relaxed, free, and artistic, and personalized flow of information. See, when we talk about any magazine, a writer makes sure that whenever he or she is talking about a topic, story, or a agenda, it should be more or less like the writer is talking to the reader face to face directly. There has to be a personal touch. There has to be a more like two people are talking to each other. There has to be a personalized flow of information, which is nowhere seen in any newspaper, because newspapers have some limitations that they have to write only 5 W's and 1 H without giving your own opinion. So, reporters only report the story, but people who are writing for a magazine, they are the writers and the author of that particular content or information that they have created, and they have full right to give that personalized touch in that story. A magazine writers tend to practice his or her writings craft more freely than a newspaper writer. Since newspaper most content are news, much of it won't be of any use by the next day, unlike magazines, which can be read anytime even after a week. Yes, that's true when we talk about the life of a newspaper. So, a life of a newspaper is till evening, and then after once the day is over, we all feel like buying or reading the new newspaper. So, the life of a newspaper is only 24 hours. But when we talk about a magazine, whenever you read it, it totally looks like as if you have recently bought, and it never fades off. So, even if you read a magazine after a month, year, still you think that, oh, this is a new magazine, and you still skipped few pages of this magazine. So, that's a charm of a magazine, that even if you have read it once, but still after few weeks, you again would like to read it again. The newspaper is as good as one day use, unlike the magazine, which has to wait for its next issue to be considered that old. Next, advertising. Business wise, both tend to attract advertising, but in doing so, magazines have some stiff advantage over newspapers. Advertisements in magazines tend to attract a recall value among its readers, since they look much appealing and colorful with all their glossy pages. As we all know that the price of a magazine is pretty higher than a newspaper, and the reason behind it is mainly the quality of the magazine. One side in a newspaper, which is made up of a recycled paper, and it costs maximum rupees 10. On the other side, you see a magazine which minimum cost is somewhere 45 to 50, with the glossy pages, of course, has a better quality of printing. So, keeping in mind these two, yes, the magazine has a better look and much more appealing to the eyes because of the glossy pages and the investment which has been done while printing the magazine. Whereas, on the other hand, this is the fact that newspapers are circulated on daily basis gives the notion that the same sells more than the weekly magazines. Additionally, advertising on a magazine is way too costly than on a newspaper. Magazines at times, although not most of, tend to reside more on advertising than the informing aspect. Next, target audiences. Newspaper targets everyone. That's true that we don't have any defined audience for magazine. Sorry, for newspaper. But when we talk about the term magazine, we have a defined audience, readers for a magazine. Everyone doesn't feel like buying the magazine. We have defined selected audience who feel like buying it on a regular basis. In fact, we have defined readers who look for this particular magazine because magazines have a particular theme, which means a person who has interest in clothing and designing will go for a lifestyle magazine. Somebody who has interest in politics of India would like to know about a magazine which is wholly solely related to politics, or somebody who want to have a detailed information about travel and hotels, of course will only go for a travel magazine, whereas a newspaper has no specific audience, because as you see you get all kind of information, maybe not so in detail, but you get a updated information about it as per the nature of the newspaper. So magazines also follow that trend type, but when they do is classify them, it deals more on the identity of the audience. A sports magazine cannot be that appealing to a reader who's so fond of technology stuff. A magazine audience is more identified than of the newspaper. Next, articles. A magazine has always a feature article and the picture usually of the subject feature boldly pasted on the cover of the magazine. A magazine, a newspaper might have a feature article but it does not have picture in front of it. Now let's take a look on the kind of news that you see. Hard news versus soft news. Newspapers produce a substantial amount of content ranging from hard news stories to entertainment pieces and feel good tales. As news is always breaking around the world, newspapers are never short of content, whereas magazines tend to focus on entertainment pieces and features about certain subjects within their chosen magazine subject called soft news. Magazines writing lies between a work of fiction and hard news reporting. The magazine articles can have all the entertainment value of fiction using plot, scenes, characters, and description. At the same time, the magazine journalists present interesting, topical information, hard facts gained from research and interviews. Next, publications. Newspapers have the sole purpose of providing readers with the most up to date news from around the world. To maintain readers' interest, newspaper must publish on a daily basis to ensure their information is up to date and relevant. Magazines tend to focus on entertainment pieces and features. Due to the cost of publications and limited information, they have to produce magazines are published either monthly or bi-monthly. So magazine as a support for newspaper. Magazine is published along with the newspapers weekly or monthly. They support the newspaper publication by providing subjective understanding of issues rather than factual reporting. That's all for today. Thank you, everyone.